Welcome to Sleep Tight Stories.
The Story of Fido. Fido's master had to go on a long journey across the country to a certain town, and he was carrying with him a large bag of gold to deposit at the bank there. This bag he carried on his saddle, for he was riding, as in those days there were no trains, and he had to travel as quickly as he could. Fido scampered cheerfully along at the horse's heels, and every now and then the man would call out to her, and Fido would wag her tail and bark back an answer. The sun was hot and the road dusty, and poor Fido's little legs grew more and more tired. At last, they came to a cool, shady wood, and her master stopped, dismounted, and tied his horse to a tree, and took his heavy saddlebags from the saddle. He laid them down very carefully and pointed to them, said to Fido, "Watch them." Then he drew his cloak about him, lay down with his head on the bags, and soon was fast asleep. Little Fido curled herself up close to her master's head, with her nose over one end of the bag, and went to sleep too. But she did not sleep very soundly, for her master had told her to watch, and every few moments she would open her eyes and prick up her ears in case someone was coming. Her master was tired and slept soundly and long, much longer than he had intended. At last he was awakened by Fido's licking his face. The dog saw that the sun was nearly setting and knew that it was time for her master to go on his journey. The man patted Fido and then jumped up, much troubled to find he had slept so long. He snatched up his cloak, threw it over his horse, untied the bridle, sprang into the saddle, and calling Fido, started off in great haste. But Fido did not seem ready to follow him. She ran after the horse and bit at his heels, and then ran back into the woods again, all the time barking furiously. This she did several times, but her master had no time to heed her and galloped away, thinking she would follow him. At last the little dog sat down by the roadside and looked sadly after her master until he had turned a bend in the road. When he was no longer in sight, she sprang up with a wild bark and ran after him again. She overtook him just as he had stopped to water his horse at a brook that flowed across the road. She stood beside the brook and barked so savagely that her master rode back and called her to him. But instead of coming, she darted off down the road, still barking. Her master did not know what to think, and began to fear that his dog was going mad. Mad dogs are afraid of water, and act in strange ways when they see it. While the man was thinking of this, Fido came running back again and dashed at him furiously. She leapt at the legs of his horse and even jumped up and bit the toe of her master's boot. Then she ran down the road again, barking with all her might. Her master was now sure that she was mad, and he turned to ride away. He rode away quickly. He had not ridden very far when he stopped suddenly. He felt under his coat for his saddlebags. They were not there. Could he have dropped them? Or had he left them behind in the wood where he had rested? He felt sure that they must be in the woods, for he could not remember having picked them up or fastened them to his saddle. He turned his horse and rode back again as hard as he could. When he came to the brook, he sighed and thought, "Fido." But he looked about and could see nothing of her. As he moved past the brook and came closer, he now understood why little Fido had acted so strangely. She knew that her master had left behind his precious bags of gold, and so she had tried to tell him in the only way she could. At last, he reached the wood, and there lay the bags of gold. And beside them, with her little nose lying over one end of them, lay faithful Fido.